Hello and welcome to the bonsai garden. I've been collecting more seeds from the local neighbourhood, and so I'm going to plant some of these up, and I've got acorns and sweet chestnut, and I've also collected some Paul's Scarlet Hawthorn from the tree which overhangs my garden. So I've had lots of these drop into the garden, and it's a beautiful double red flower. So I'm going to plant some of those up and see if we can't get that to germinate. I've also very kindly been sent some Judas Tree seeds by Guy Watson of Bognor Regis Bonsai. So I'm going to take a look at those, and I'm going to look at propagating some of those as well. So these are in quite an unusual seed pod. I can just try a couple of these away. And I believe that within here we've got some tiny black seeds, which is what I'm going to plant up. So there you are. See the seed in my hand just there. So I'm going to take some of those out and I'm going to plant those up. Now I've got a seed tray here which has got some of my cuttings from earlier in the year and a couple of seedlings. So I've got a couple of Japanese maples in here. I've got a western hemlock which has grown from seed. I've got several cuttings which I'm propagating from a Chinese juniper, and I believe an Italian cypress at the back there, which I've grown from seed. So I'm just going to fill each of these little pots with some potting mix, and my potting mix is a mixture of molar clay, perlite, agricultural grit and agricultural sand, and a tiny bit of regular garden compost. So I'm just going to fill these pots, and then I'm going to pop the seeds that I've got into those and label them up. Fairly straightforward. So we now have our little seed pots ready, and all I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to take the sweet chestnut and I'm just going to insert those into the pot. Nothing particularly fancy or sophisticated. What I'm doing is I'm trying to replicate what nature would be doing. So the seed has fallen onto the floor, the little funny green casing will have split open and the seed will be on the floor, and that will settle into the soil. And what would happen is that over winter the repeated freezing and thawing would crack that outer shell. That seed would then germinate and grow into a tree. So all I'm doing is I've placed that shell into the pot here, and I'm just going to leave that out over. I recently did a video where I showed 15 tips for people who are new to bonsai, and one of those tips was concerning growing trees from seeds, and in particular from bonsai seed kits. So if you haven't seen that video, it's worthwhile taking a look and getting my take and my opinions on those bonsai seed kits, and just generally growing bonsai trees from seeds. The upshot of that essentially was that although it's worthwhile growing trees from seeds, because we're talking of periods of 5 to 10 years to get a sensible looking specimen that you can start doing bonsai techniques on, it's as well to do this alongside having other trees that you can work on. So if you're thinking of getting into bonsai, I wouldn't recommend that you do that via planting seeds. Go get yourself a nice little Chinese juniper or a Chinese elm to work on, And whilst you're working on that, styling that and keeping it alive, you can have seeds which you've planted, which you're growing and nurturing for development in future years. Next up in my collected seeds is some acorns, and you can see that already the casing on here is beginning to split, and in fact acorns will actually germinate prior to winter, and they will start developing roots as soon as possible, really, because the seed has a lot of stored energy in it, and that gives it a head start come spring of next year. So same sort of thing, I'm just going to pop these into the pot. And I've just got the top of the seed showing there. So I just make a little hole in the soil, pushing that down into there and leaving that to do its thing. Next up, in terms of my collected seeds, I have these hawthorns from my neighbour Paul's Scarlet hawthorn tree. So I'm just making a little hole in the pot and just putting the seeds on top of the soil there and just lightly covering them. And I'm going to put a couple of seeds in each pot. Now these are covered in a fruit, so what I'm expecting is that that fruit will rot away. The seed is inside of there, and it could be that it takes not this year but next year before those germinate. So some patience will be required. This is why it's useful to have other trees to be working on alongside. And even when these do germinate, we're talking perhaps 5 years before I have something that even looks even remotely like a tree, and certainly anything that could be wired and styled. So that's those done. Last up, I have the Cercis or Judas Tree seeds, which were sent to me by Guy Watson. So these have come in quite a long pod, and they have multiple seeds in that pod. And in fact they look a little bit like apple seeds within there. So I'm just breaking some of those out of a couple of these pods, and I'll get those planted up into the soil. And again, I'm going to plant up multiple of those into a pot and see how we get on. I believe that a couple of years ago I received a bonsai tree kit which had Judas Tree seeds in there, and I think it was one of those trees which did germinate, but I don't think I managed to keep that alive. So it will be interesting to see what happens with these and how successful I am with them. So we've got the seeds there. And I'm just going to poke a couple of holes into the soil and plant these again quite lightly in there. Several seeds per pot. And just making sure those are covered over. So we're not planting these like centimetres deep in the pot, they're just literally beneath the surface of the soil to give them every chance. So that's 2 pots, and I think we'll break open some more. And I have to be careful not to flick these all over the floor. They are a little bit fiddly to get at. But thank you very much, Guy, for sending these. It will be interesting to see how we get on. I also sent a number of people Japanese maple seeds and crabapple seeds, and it will be interesting to see and to compare how people get on with those come spring. So keep me posted on how you do. And also let me know if you've had experience of propagating any of these plants. So sweet chestnut, Judas Tree, or Cercis, or oak. And also, if you haven't done so already, if you like to consider subscribing, it means you'll keep updated on future developments around the bonsai garden and my trees. And also there is an extensive back catalogue now of surprisingly over 200 videos on the channel. And I'm sure nobody's as surprised as I am. But if you haven't seen some of those, it's certainly worth going back and having a look through the archives. There's all sorts of things in there. It's also quite interesting to see how the channel has developed over time. So that's all of the seeds planted up now. So I'm just going to give them an initial water. I'm also going to stick some labels on the rest of these pots here. And then I'm just going to put those into a quiet corner where they won't get disturbed. And then literally just leave them until spring to allow them to germinate. So they'll go through the natural winter freeze thaw process, which hopefully will wake the seeds up. The sweet chestnut and the acorns may well germinate before then. They could well germinate within the next couple of weeks. So we'll see how we get on. So that's everything potted up and labelled now. So thank you for watching. And if you'd like to see my video on 15 tips for people new to bonsai, then check out the link. Thank you.